Clash of Champions is less than 2 weeks away, and the WWE already has some big title matches lined up, as well as the match that will determine the 2019 King of the Ring. However, there's still plenty of time to add some sizzle to the show, so what will WWE do on Raw to hype the event? Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at the good, the bad, and the damn right ugly from the 2nd September 2019 edition of Monday Night Raw. It's the first Raw of September 2019, and it's coming to you from Royal Farms Arena, Baltimore, Maryland. And some of you may know, Baltimore is a legendary wrestling city with many famous moments, including superstar Billy Graham defeating Bruno Sammartino for the WWF Championship, Tito Santana's epic steel cage victory over Greg Valentine for the Intercontinental Championship, Ron Simmons defeating Vader for the WCW Championship, and many others. Will tonight's Raw prove historic? Probably not, but let's hope for the best. Tonight's Raw starts with a contract signing between Universal Champion Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman, who's not only Rollins' challenger but his Raw Tag Team Championship partner. Michael Cole asks the two about the match and how they can hope to coexist since they have to defend the Raw Tag Team Championship that same night. Rollins says he's worked multiple matches in one night and reminds Braun Strowman that he defeated the Beast, something Strowman hasn't done. The OC show up, and AJ Styles asks why Strowman is getting a title shot and not him, as Styles is US champion. Styles also questions Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode getting a title shot instead of the former champs Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. The Phenomenal One declares that if the OC don't get what they want, no one else will either. Things quickly break down as Styles rips up the contract as Rollins and Strowman clash with Anderson and Gallows. It's a non-title match between the two teams, and US champion AJ Styles makes his presence felt at ringside as Seth Rollins rolls Anderson up for the pin. After the match, AJ attacks Rollins as Braun deals with Anderson and Gallows. Strowman runs into Rollins, but is this intentional or an accident? Things heat up further as Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode run in, adding to the champion's problems. Beat down on Rollins and Strowman that features Rollins taking a super kick and a glorious DDT, while Strowman is on the wrong end of the Magic Killer and the Phenomenal Forearm. After the break, Charlie Caruso interviews Cedric Alexander about his King of the Ring match against Baron Corbin. Things don't get far as the OC roll in, destroying Cedric, including throwing him into one of the production crates. The referee has to check if Cedric will be able to compete. Next up is Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins versus Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. The WWE continues to build up the new team of Ziggler and Roode with a win over the former Raw Tag Team Champions. A glorious DDT on Hawkins and it's all over. The next match of the night is a women's match between Natalya and Lacey Evans. Natalya is clearly angry about being Sasha Banks' personal punching bag the last 2 weeks, so she goes after Evans with everything she has. It's not enough though, as Evans pulls the okie dokie on Natty, throwing a handkerchief at her, distracting her long enough to hit the women's rights for the win. Now it's time for the Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch to cut a promo, and the man runs down Sasha Banks, accusing Banks of getting everything handed to her since her time on NXT through her main roster career. Lynch points out that Banks left WrestleMania 35 with nothing, while Lynch walked out as double champion, and Banks' former partner Bayley is doing great too. Lynch calls out Banks and the boss shows up. Banks dismisses Lynch's comments and says the only reason she ended up at WrestleMania's main event is because Nia Jax broke her face, making people care about her. Becky calls out Banks, but the boss says she's not fighting for free and they'll have to meet at Clash of Champions. Lynch accepts her challenge as Banks tells her that after Clash of Champions, the man will be the boss's bitch. Backstage, the Street Profits seem stunned by the promo. While Cedric is cleared to wrestle, he's not 100% due to an injured arm. Corbin edges out Alexander with the end of days, advancing to round 3. Ooh, we're getting so close to King Corbin. Stone Cold Steve Austin tweets that he's going to be at Raw next week to moderate the contract signing between Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman. Caruso lands another big interview, this time interviewing local talent Brian Thomas and Tyler Hastings about their match against Eric and Ivar. The hapless duo tell Caruso they're from Pittsburgh and they'll make the Viking Raiders look like they're from Baltimore. Yeah, that's obviously not gonna happen. Another squash match. The round 2 tournament between Ricochet and Samoa Joe is up next, as Joe locks in the Coquina Clutch while he has Ricochet on the top rope late in the match. This likely win takes a bizarre turn when Ricochet kicks Joe off the mat and both men land, covering each other. The referee makes a 3 count but doesn't declare a winner. After the match, referee John Cone says he's going to make a decision, so Ricochet and Joe decide to kill time by trying to kill each other. It's time for another Firefly Funhouse episode, and the always tortured Bray Wyatt apologizes for what the Fiend did to Finn Balor, then saves himself from being fired by Devil Vince by throwing money at him. Hey, just like real life. Wyatt criticizes Rollins and Strowman for not being good teammates. Wyatt notes that he has his team of Firefly Funhouse characters to help him deal with his pain, and he has the Fiend to help him inflict pain. Referee John Cone is ready to announce the winner of the Joe vs Ricochet match, but Baron Corbin shows up and says they both should be eliminated, thus giving him a bye to the final round. Cone disagrees and proclaims Joe and Ricochet both won, thus making the round 3 match a triple threat match between them and Corbin. Interesting. A Rey Mysterio promo, and again he says he wants to pass the torch down to his son. That's going to be a pretty damn big torch. Next up, The Miz vs Cesaro, and the Swiss Superman does what he seems to do best, put on a good match as he puts over a superstar in need of some momentum. Here The Miz defeats Cesaro, so the A-lister looks strong going into Clash of Champions against Intercontinental Champion Shinsuke Nakamura. It's time for the main event as Women's Tag Team Champions Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss go up against Becky Lynch and Bayley. This showcase of 4 of the WWE's best performers is a good match with a predictable ending of Sasha Banks running in to attack Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch and Bayley win by disqualification, but the post-match melee is far from predictable as Banks uses a chair on Lynch, but Bayley grabs it, smiling at Banks before the hugger turns mugger and clobbers the man with the chair in a shock heel turn. Damn, we really didn't see that one coming. But that was a quick recap. What about the good, the bad, and the damn right ugly? And as always, let's start off with the good, as number 1, an overarching theme. The WWE showed advanced storyline by the theme of a bitter OC spoiling the babyfaces' matches since the OC didn't get what they wanted. Whether it was laying out the Raw Tag Team Champions or softening favourite Cedric Alexander up for Baron Corbin, the OC rebounded from 2 weeks of losses. As Wrestlelamia has pointed out, heels can be too dominant and have to show they're vulnerable. Like any booking, things have to be done in moderation. The WWE has done this, showing the OC bouncing back after 2 bad weeks and proving they're a constant threat to anyone on the WWE roster. Number 2. Thematic Programming Part 2. The Boss showed up in more than one segment, furthering her feud against the man Becky Lynch, as well as leading fans to wonder what to make of the Banks/Bayley friendship and whether it still exists. Number 3. Using the King of the Ring effectively. The WWE seems to be using the King of the Ring tournament the way any good tournament should be used, not only building up the winner, but advancing competitors' status through their various performances. For example, while Cedric Alexander lost to Baron Corbin, he lost a match where he was wrestling hurt. Alexander lost the match, but not the build-up he's had over the summer. Likewise, while some complained about the finish for Joe vs Ricochet, it was an unusual but explainable finish that sets up what should be an exciting match next week. Number 4. A big main event. Although the WWE didn't give this match the hype it should have had, considering every female champion was working the match, this was a true big main event that could have been won for a pay-per-view. Understandably, the true purpose was to further Sasha Banks' heel status and Bayley, but it was a good display of what 4 of the WWE's best can do. And number 5. Some true shocks. Tonight's show featured a shock heel turn as well as an unusual finish for a key King of the Ring match. The WWE put on a show that could lead to Raw becoming must-see TV again. These angles made sense and didn't fall into the trap of being Vince Russo's swerve category. But that was the good. What about the bad? As number 1, jobber interview. The decision to have local talent cut a promo on the Viking Raiders before their utter annihilation was puzzling, not only for giving them airtime, but for apparently trying to get the fans to cheer Eric and Ivar. Whatever the reason, it was a complete mess, but not as bad as the mess the Viking team is in, beating up nobodies week after week. Number 2. There's only so much room. Even with 3 hours to fill, the WWE finds itself struggling to book its entire roster. This week's Raw was all about the top stars, but the WWE needs to find a balance between showcasing the top stars and giving undercard acts time to build up. That was the good, the bad. What about the damn right ugly? As you'll be surprised, there's nothing on the show that reached the depths of ugliness. And although it wasn't perfect, tonight's Raw was a solid show, building on storylines, building up stars, and entertaining the fans from start to finish. That's how a wrestling show needs to be every week. But there you have it guys, a Raw recap as well as the good, the bad and the damn right ugly. So be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.